Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
Hello, how do you do? We are the boys in white and blue, and we are back with another episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show, broadcasting on CITR Radio 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam Territory at the University of beautiful British Columbia. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Steve Pander.
And I'm Zachary Adam Eisenheimer.
And of course we have, it goes without saying, another packed show for you this episode, and we're actually kicking off our end of year reviews where we've talked that we're going to split them up. So we're doing a Whitecaps end of the year episode this time around, then we'll have our Christmas special coming out, then we're going to be doing a special Canadian Premier League / League One BC end of year review, looking forward into next year, Canadian men's national team, and then a special episode on women's soccer as well, where we're going to be joined by our good friend Harjeet Johal, and we've got some good interviews lined up across these shows as well. So stay with us for that. We'll get into the Whitecaps action soon. Just want to start off by saying some of you will have seen this on Twitter. It's been a sad week. Unfortunately, here at AFTN Towers, I lost my Mexican rescue dog, Penny, this week. Had her just for a couple of years, but fun, memorable couple of years that I had with her. Thank you to everyone that left comments on Twitter and on Facebook. It really meant a lot to me and Caitlin to know how much we were in your thoughts and how loved we were in Penny as well. So thank you so much for that. But I felt it was best just to kind of do stuff to take my mind off it. So that is why we're recording the show this week. The last 2 years, she's basically spent either sitting beside me here on the couch or at my feet as we've recorded the shows. So I feel she's with us with spirit tonight as we go over our Whitecaps year in review. And we'll get into the full year look back in a sec. But in this first part, I want to kick things off by looking at the Whitecaps news of the week, because there's been a couple of things for us to talk about. And the first of those is we've got a new player, Tristan Blackman, 25-year-old, selected 4th overall in this week's expansion draft by Charlotte FC, immediately traded to Vancouver for $475,000 in GAM. That's $350,000 in 2022 GAM and $125,000 in 2023 GAM. Now, Blackman made 79 appearances for LAFC across all competitions, 2 goals and 7 assists overall. He was selected 3rd overall by LAFC in the 2018 MLS Super Draft, spent 4 seasons with the Black and Gold, had a couple of loan spells with Phoenix. He can play right back. He can play wing back. He can play in a back 3 as a centre back. He's a very versatile player. Vanni Sartini sees him primarily in the formation that he's going to be looking at as using him as a centre back. It looks a good, strong, positive addition, Steve.
Yeah, and I like for a deal like this, I expected more GAM to be involved, but I think it's actually a pretty good deal. Considering like his experience and everything. Obviously he's coming from a team that LAFC that doesn't really value defending. They've gotten rid of good defenders, and I was surprised he wasn't available.
Baffling.
Yeah. In fact, I think they traded for a forward or striker or something like that from Charlotte in the same draft. But I think it's a positive. I think he almost immediately becomes a starter along with, whoever the other two guys are, Godoy, Renko, Youngworth, whoever you want to put on there. And the fact that he's got the versatility to play fullback if you need to, if you want to switch to a 4-man back at some point or in some games or some points of the game, or even to a wing back if you're running short on there and you don't have to worry about getting too deep into other parts. So, yeah, I think it's a positive, definitely positive, good. And it's good that they made a trade within the MLS. That's a huge positive step. And somebody that actually hasn't said that they don't want to come here or something like that. So
yes. I mean, that's the thing, Zach. There's three big things I like about this. One, he's a good player. Two, he's got that MLS experience. He's young, but he's experienced 4 seasons in this league. And his versatility as well to play in a back three, play in a back four, possibly even play as a wing back. All such positives. Really, really excited by this.
Yeah, it seems like a decent pickup. Obviously, the fluctuation of the TAM market is always feels a little bit weird, obviously, because you
never know how much we're sitting on. It feels like we must be sitting on a lot. But
you think they'd have some? Well, they have some, obviously, but yeah, that wasn't a pun either. No, I mean, overall, like just on face value, it looks like a step in the right direction, bringing in someone who can play those positions, especially who can play, like you said, in multiple formations and do it well. I think bodes really well for them. I think, like, my initial thought is that, like, this is the kind of player who would be like an upgrade on a Jake Nowinski kind of thing, right? Like, or maybe he'll be similar to Jake Nowinski, but that's kind of how I see him in what role he might play in the team. But yeah, so I think a positive move for them, and I think a move they'll be happy with. And now they have also a new player that's actually a new player, not just a guy coming back from injury, or not having played.
I feel like they have enough GAM where they could like dive into it and swim around like Scrooge McDuck.
Oh, that would be so nice.
My knowledge of him is limited, but is that a fair assessment that he's like an upgrade on Nowinski, like a guy?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say so. I think he seems more athletic than what Nowinski has, and overall, and he's got the size as well to better handle a center back position.
And to go third in the super draft as well, for what you might think of the draft or not, but to go that high, highly thought of from his college career and stuff as well.
And he didn't come from a well-known college either, so he kind of stood out on his own. From Pacific is not well-known like in the college ranks.
Well, he obviously likes the West Coast. I mean, that's a plus side as well. My only concern, which is kind of tempered by the fact that he's probably going to be playing in a back three, is there hasn't been a great offensive output for him. And I do feel this is where we've kind of fallen down, especially at right back. Probably not so much at left back, but at right back, we haven't had a number of right backs over the years that contribute the assists that you want or the goals that you want, or that you see elsewhere around the league.
I can only think of two, I think.
Beta was the best.
Beta and Lee.
And Lee, YP Lee was just beyond his prime, or else he would have been like, if he was in his prime, overall he would be the best ever, like based on his whole career. But Beta for sure was the best.
But it's been such a big fall off since then that I was like, there's not a huge output. But if he's in a back three, mainly as a centre back, you're not expecting him to be having a big offensive output, so that's fine. The other big news of the week is the 2022 MLS schedule has been released in full. The season kicks off on February 26th, wraps up on October 9th. We knew the first two fixtures anyway. We're away to Columbus, then home to the MLS champs a week later. It's the first season the Whitecaps don't start with a home game.
Which is weird.
It's weird, except it was then pointed out to me the reason that they don't is they can't get into BC Place. No, they can't get into BC Place, not because of the turf, but the Rugby Sevens is booked.
Rugby Sevens. I thought it was the boat show.
Yeah. Thankfully, it's not something that's going to flatten it as much as that. So, yeah, the Rugby Sevens had that date booked. And, of course, the season starting earlier.
I don't know. Some of those rugby guys are pretty big. They'll flatten them. Pretty good.
I just had a flashback to MDS Pacific training, asking the...
Are you here for the rugby?
Yeah, the women walking across the pitch. And they were, to be fair.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, you can draw your own conclusions from that.
But the look on his face was
I know. I was like, oh my. Where's this going?
Well, no, I think it was just the fact that there was a public thing happening while they were still there.
I know. They were still wrapping up the training and all these other folk are just wandering across the pitch. Now, I spoke to Vanni Sartini this week, so that's going to be on our Christmas show, and you don't want to miss it. It's an absolutely fantastic, fun, insightful, entertaining chat with Vanni. You'd expect nothing else from Vanni, and of course myself, but it's a really good chat. We cover a lot of things, and I just want to preempt part of that just now by saying an interesting point that Vanni raised with me, Steve, was he is surprised that if you start your schedule away from home, that you don't wrap up your schedule at home. He thinks you should, by fairness, either have a home game to kick things off or a home game to end things. But to be away for both...
But I don't know. To me, it doesn't make a huge difference. The Whitecaps have had a big advantage over the years of opening and wrapping up the season at home.
Yeah, that's true.
In the past year.
So, shouldn't complain.
But I honestly, yeah, it makes sense for especially for the Rugby Sevens. I didn't know about that because typically you'd want to use a dome stadium, especially in that month of February to start, have some indoor games. So,
in saying that though, we are away from home.
Yeah, March,
a lot in the early going.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird because it's not just one weekend.
No,
it is weird.
I looked at that and I was like, this is one city that, aside from the weather being pretty much nice most of the time, we've got a bloody roof.
I don't think it will be, but I think that opens the door potentially for Canada to play there on the 25th, right?
Oh,
I mean, the Whitecaps would have not been off anyway.
Off their own accord, maybe.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I agree with it does. I mean, the Whitecaps cannot complain because they have had so many beginnings and endings at home to seasons. But it is Vanni's right in the sense of they don't run the schedule like a proper league does, where you alternate back and forth and stuff.
Yeah, which is what I like.
Oh yes, that's what it should be.
It's proper.
Exactly. But that won't happen in MLS until there's let's say 32 teams, and they're each the Eastern and Western Conference or whatever are their actually own leagues, and you're only playing within them and that kind of stuff. So you won't see that for many a year, if ever.
I mean, we do end with what could be a very interesting game in Minnesota. That's not a game you want to go there looking for 3 points to get into the playoffs, because that's going to be a tough one.
I think the biggest positive about it is it ends on the October 9th.
Yes.
And then the playoffs after that for about a couple of weeks or something like that.
Yeah. The World Cup, I think they have to let them go the third week of November.
Yeah, so that's plenty of time.
I mean, obviously, getting the players released in time for the World Cup, and they've got a week to spare, I believe, before that they have to release them. I mean, that's only really going to affect the Canadian, Mexican, and Panamanian players that are in MLS. So
the one thing that stands out for me on the schedule, Michael, is that all the Cascadia Cup matches are on Saturdays and Sundays. So they're on weekends. Yeah. No midweek games. There's no Friday night Cascadia Cup games, which is, I don't know, it feels like a first time in a long time.
Yeah, because it's horrible to have one of those midweek for traveling fans. Like if we're away to Portland midweek or they're away here midweek, it's not right.
No.
Seattle, Portland, you could maybe get away with because it's a lot shorter travel. Although trying to go up and down the I-5 midweek to get to your place for a football game at rush hour is not a happy commute at the best of times. But overall, 21 matches on Saturdays, 10 at home, 11 away. 7 on Sundays, 2 at home, 5 away. 4 matches just on Wednesday, can cope with that. 3 of them at home as well, so I can really cope with that. And 1 away. Although the midweek crowds at BC Place haven't been great, so that's probably not ideal from the Whitecaps front office point of view. 2 home matches on a Friday, which will be interesting. Although I go to a lot of VMSL games on a Friday, That's my kind of enjoyment and my release from just normal football stuff. To go to a Whitecaps game on a Friday, not a huge fan. I do much prefer Saturday games, but yeah. But as we touched upon, it's a weird chunk of games in that you're not going home away. There's spells where you've got 3 away games in a row, and then it's followed by 3 home games in a row. And yeah, it's maybe nice to have a base for a period of time, but I don't like it. It's not ideal. We do have visits to Charlotte and Nashville for the first time ever. Hopefully the visit to the former goes smoothly. I have heard it is hard to find the Clit Stadium. And many people have tried and only a few are really successful. So fingers crossed the Whitecaps can find their way to get some pleasure there. But that was the news of the week that came out. Let's finish off this part by kicking off our Whitecaps end of year review. I'm saving on the music this episode by doing it myself. 2021. A season like no other. Although I feel we said that last year, I have a horrible feeling we may be saying that next year as well. Who knows what is in store for us? One thing though, it was certainly an interesting year. There were highs. 6th place finished for the Caps in the West. First playoff appearance since 2017. A new coach that's breathed new life into the club. Excited the fan base. Got media interest, including American media. You actually had MLS, their website, wanting to cover the Whitecaps. Obviously not still having anything written by me. I appear to be persona non grata to them at the moment. But Vanni did spark interest in the Whitecaps, and anything that does that to the Americans, I mean, that's a very much a high. And we finally have a number 10. So a lot to be excited about. There were lows as well. We had to change manager halfway through the season. We played half the season away from Canada. And of course there was that Canadian Championship loss to Pacific, which was terrible from a Whitecaps point of view, great from a Pacific point of view and BC Soccer point of view. So highs and lows in there, but if you're doing a Whitecaps review, clearly a low. How do you look back on 2021, Steve? A good year, a great year, a middling year. If you're marking it out of 10, how would you rate it for success for the Whitecaps? And then how would you rate it for how much you've enjoyed it?
Based on success, based on my own feelings going into the season, I would say it's a good year. Because at the beginning there was no number 10. They were playing.
But he was coming.
But they were playing. They were essentially playing in a different country. There was no chance for, and there were, at the time I was saying, there could be a positive. They have less travel, but clearly it wasn't. They weren't comfortable playing in Utah, and I don't know if it was just that there were some family that wasn't able to make it, and so some of them were still split apart. Obviously, it also delayed some of the arrivals because of visa issues and stuff like that. There were certain players that never showed up and had to leave in the middle of the season because apparently the visa wasn't coming through. So I think it was what it was. It was a good year. I was just the only thing I feel bad about is that MDS basically barely got to play in Canada during his whole career here, especially since the pandemic started. It was maybe one season he got to play, and then 2 seasons, and the rest of the time he was in the US. So yeah, that's the only
thought of it that way. Yeah. I mean, what about you, Zach? From a Whitecaps point of view, how good do you feel it was? From a personal view, watching it, did you find it an enjoyable season? You're hard to please.
I think the Whitecaps have to be really, really happy because they, to quote Axel, they took the next step. So I don't think they can complain. And yeah, like Steve said, they had so many obstacles to overcome. So I think this is definitely a positive season for the Whitecaps. For me personally, my enjoyment of MLS in general continues to it's like a decrescendo that's accompanied by a crescendoing of interest in obviously the Canadian Premier League and what's happening.
Well, there's so much football to watch, and there's so much more coming as well. I think my interest in MLS probably peaked at MLS's back. It's ironic, something that was forced upon them by a pandemic has been the most enjoyable for me probably since watching that very first season and getting like that was a high because you're so excited about it, and then that was another high, and we had a few good years in between and ups and downs. I really enjoyed this season from a Whitecaps point of view at times. I mean, I'd mark it maybe say an 8 out of 10 enjoyment factor because there was some games where it was simply not enjoyable. That run they went on, the winless run, which we'll come to shortly, it wasn't fun watching it. Certainly wasn't fun covering it because you can only ask the same question so many times as to where's it going wrong? Are you going to turn a corner? But I think the way it ended has put a lot of optimism into a fan base that was becoming very jaded for things on and off the pitch. And I mean, we won't go through this in the review, but we'll mention it now. Obviously, the off the pitch downside is this investigation that's still hanging around the club, and that will now go into to next year as well with the historic abuse allegations and misconduct allegations. So I mean, that takes a little bit of a shine off things, but solely from a playing point of view, it's been the most enjoyable season for a long time. And I think Vanni Sartini has to take a lot of the credit for that because, as I said, he breathed new life into every aspect of this team. And I describe him as infectious. And you see some of the videos that the team's putting out, and Sarita, she's done a fantastic job this year, the club reporter with her stuff. She's like one of the best in MLS. She's really another person that's been a breath of fresh air for the Whitecaps. But the personality that shines through, it's impossible at the moment not to like him and the team from the playing point of view. I know a lot of people struggle to split the playing side and the off-field side. I personally can, but I know some of you listening can, and I understand that, and that's fair enough. There's no right or wrong here. But solely from a playing point of view, which we'll focus on this, it was fun for the most part.
Yeah, for Sartini, I'm just hoping like he can like keep it fresh. Like don't like the only concern is, and we haven't seen him in when the team is losing, and that's going to happen next year. There's not going to be so we have to see how he reacts there, and that's where, like, if you're winning, the locker room is always happy. The chemistry is great when you're winning, but when you're losing, and it can go down no matter what kind of coach you have. So it's just a matter of seeing that side of it, and that will tell us a lot about Sartini.
And the pressure's on him, and he knows that. Sure. We talk about that in our interview that will be in the next show, and he knows the pressure's on him now.
But pressure's on every coach in MLS, unless your owner doesn't care and is just looking to collect money from some. The pressure's on every coach.
I think the league's changing so much so quickly that there's no room for these clubs, and they'll soon get found out. So what we used to do when we did this is we went month by month. So we're not doing that. We're going to split it into different segments. So I've got it down to like the off-season, the pre-season. That'll be segment 1. That's how we'll finish off this part. Next part, we'll look at the Utah months. And I'm going to bring you an interview that I did with Ryan Gauld a week or so ago. And then the last part, we'll look at returning home, the running in the playoffs, and just some thoughts about next year. So starting off this part with just a look at the off-season, the pre-season. So the Super Draft in January, the Whitecaps selected 4 players. I actually forgot until I was putting this together that we had selected 4 players. I knew we'd selected 3, and then there's this mysterious guy, Eric Iloski, who I don't even remember us picking. I don't even remember hearing this name before in my life. We clearly talked about it on the show in January. Am I alone there? Do you remember this guy?
I'm not sure if his mother remembers him getting picked by the Whitecaps.
He was our third choice.
Steve, you need to get one of those shirts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Do your stick.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't know who he was if he came in his shirt saying, "Hi, I'm Eric Olowski."
I love that one. That's a nice callback. So in the first round, we picked David Egbo and Javain Brown. We'll talk about them shortly. Then our third pick was Eric Olowski, who I was like, oh, maybe he went back to college. Turns out, no, he actually went pro.
Yeah, he went to Vegas.
Yeah, Las Vegas Lights, primarily as a right back, scoring 2 goals and 1 assist in 14 appearances. So maybe we could have had a little bit of a look at him. He was obviously highly rated at some point to make the selection. And then the other pick
he's got a citizenship in North Macedonia too, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My dark horses for the Euros that sadly fell at the first hurdle and got turned into glue, I think. But our fourth pick was us securing the MLS rights for highly touted academy player Joel Harrison, who was going back to university. So he could be a guy that the Whitecaps maybe look at for this MLS Next Pro thing when it comes in. He's ticks all the boxes for that. Lot of time for Joel Harrison. He is a definite prospect. So we've wrapped up his rights. So that's the main thing. So looking at the 2 main draft picks, David Egbo. A lot was expected of him, and when he was drafted, MDS was talking about, yeah, he's the guy that we'll probably rely on when Cava goes to play for Canada in June and July in the World Cup qualifiers and the Gold Cup. And then he actually gets loaned out and he doesn't play for the Whitecaps. Loaned to Phoenix Rising in the USL. 17 matches for them, 5 goals and 1 assist. He was averaging a goal about 1 every 3 games, basically. In the minutes that he played. I don't know what to think of him. He's back in the Whitecaps fold. He's had a year now of being a pro under his belt. Came from Akron, Steve. Highly touted player.
Yeah.
Until we see him back in the fold pre-season, maybe even playing in the reserve league, I still don't know what we've got in him. But the glimpses he showed in Phoenix were exciting.
But there's been many a striker that come out of college that don't do well in their first pro year. I think it was good that they loaned him out. And even though you're saying 1 goal every 3 games, that's not a bad rate.
Oh, no, I take that.
Yeah, it's not a bad rate. Exactly. So that's not a bad rate for him in his first year as a pro. And, give him maybe next year he's able to take that next step. There's a number of them we already mentioned, like Jeremy Abosi, whatever.
Ebobisi, yeah.
Ebobisi. He didn't do well in his first year. There's so many strikers. Even Wando didn't. Obviously, he was a late draft pick, but he took a few years to get a striker up there. Brian White, same thing. So there's a number of stalkers that come out of that college ranks that I don't know what it is. Maybe it's easier to score in college, so they think it's easier in MLS, and that's why it happens. So that's probably what it is.
It is easier to score in college.
Oh, I know that, but what I'm saying is
it wasn't for me. I struggled.
No, what I'm saying is they find it very easy to score in college, so they're not able to take that next step and translate that into the program.
The 5 and 17 or whatever it was is not that exciting, but I agree with you guys in terms of he can be a late bloomer and someone that turns into a solid MLS player down the road. He's one player I wouldn't give up hope on for sure.
No, I wouldn't either. My big question though is how happy would he be to come back here, just kick the dirt around in the MLS terms and just be playing in the reserve league. It is his opportunity though to go out and show what he can do and what he can mean to this team as well. I guess it depends on his attitude. He was a confident guy coming in, and he's an interesting one. And like Steve said, I definitely wouldn't give up on him yet. And then the second pick that the Whitecaps had in the first round, I think was the big surprise package for a lot of people this year. Javain Brown, 27 matches played, 5 assists, which initially I thought was 2 because I went by the stats on Transfer Market. But on the MLS site, it's 5. And Steve, you think that's probably because secondary assists?
Yeah, most likely. I think Transfer Market is obviously we know it's a European-based website, so they might not be tracking secondary assists. It's probably primary assists. that they go. So
Manuel always tells me to check transfer market, so I did, and then he's wrong. So I will point that out to him. But yeah, Zach, it was a strong performance from Javain Brown, and I've liked what I've seen from him. But he's another one of these guys where you feel his second year, his sophomore year, it's a very important season for him. But we've spoken about it before. Javain Brown is not your typical MLS draft pick because he was a guy with a lot of experience.
He is exceptional as an MLS draft pick for sure. So yeah, he went after the 20th spot, and players like that do not play virtually the whole season or 2/3 of the season or whatever, 25, 27 games he played. So yeah, he's a standout in that sense. The one reason why I think he can avoid a sophomore slump, Michael, is because of the player he is. He's not like a flashy player, right? He's a solid, hard running, good tackling player. And I think that when it comes to his offensive output, he has the 5 assists this year, whether they're first or second assists or whatever. I think he can probably get more first assists depending on how they play, right? Because once Ryan Gauld came into the team, everything went through him, and he was, he got a lot of assists and a lot of second assists and that kind of stuff, and a lot of the one who making plays. But I think with knowing Brian White's aerial capabilities, plus potentially Lucas Cavallini or another decent aerial forward, I think Javain Brown, when he's playing wide, especially right back or potentially left back, can contribute even more assists to his stats for in his sophomore year. So I've high hopes. He just doesn't feel like the type of player who will be a huge letdown. Now, of course, I might be dead wrong, but that's just how I feel about it.
And the thing is, he plays a position where he doesn't need to be like, he can play a simple game and still be effective. Also, the thing is, it's like it might be his first full season as a full-time right back. I think he played mostly center back in college.
Yeah,
and so that I think that will also be another tip of the cap for him to avoid that sophomore slump, like Zach said.
But I mean, it seems a bright future for him at club and at international level, and I'm excited to see how he goes on and builds on this. Some other off-season / pre-season additions: Evan Newton in goal, didn't play any games. Kyle Alexandre, who I think can be a big performer for us next season.
Big off-season addition for this year as well.
Yes, 2 years running, big off-season addition. Got injured, obviously, and didn't play a lot. Bruno Gaspar, we may or may not have seen the end of his time in the Whitecaps. I did like what I saw from him towards the end. If we can get him on a good price, I spoke about this in another show, I'd definitely bring him back. But I think the star of those pre-season additions was Diber Caicedo. 20-year-old Colombian, comes in, 5 goals, 7 assists. A fantastic first season from him, Steve. And when you think that's what he's produced in year one, and he wasn't even playing all the games towards the end, he is another guy that I'm excited to see how he builds on that now going forward in a much better team as well. Yeah,
it's a totally dynamic player. Everybody jumped on the fact that his FIFA potential was so high and everything like that, and it got everybody excited. But he kind of showed it on the pitch. Obviously, every new player to MLS has that initial getting used to the surroundings and everything. And for him, it was like 2 different new surroundings, because it was new surrounding in Utah, then new surrounding in Vancouver. So that a double effect, and he still produced. And for me, I know that we had other goals, nominated as well, but for me, probably one of the most dynamic goals that you'll see we've seen in a while for Whitecaps, like going end to end in Portland to get them back in the game. I think that was huge. So I think he's got a lot of things. The biggest concern I have for him is what position does he play next year? He was clearly brought in as a winger. That's not going to happen probably, because Sartini hates wingers with a passion. I don't know with a passion or not, but I'm concerned about the mascot too, by the way, the Whitecaps mascot. So, but overall, I think that I think he has a lot to prove. Him, other than Brown, could go into a sophomore slump because he plays a position where you need to get goals in order to prove your worth and goals and assists, and that's where he could get into a sophomore slump. But him again, I don't see it because he's got that drive to want to be the best. So like he's came here to get in a step into Europe, and I think that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, it's hard not to agree with you, Steve. The biggest challenge for him will be the role that he plays in the team, because as much as he might not want to, if they're not going to play with wingers, he's a very effective second half substitute to play up top in one of those striking positions because of his pace, and he could score a lot more goals like that one in Portland, where he's got speed to burn and he's running at tired legs. And so, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And it'll be interesting to see with more time and a preseason, Steve, if Vanni will have more of a second option that maybe does have wingers. Maybe that's something that's one of the tactical nuances that he adds to, his first full season in charge.
And the fact that everybody knows he hates wingers, the fact that if he brings a formation that has wingers in it, that'll throw everybody off the boat.
Which he loves to do.
Yes, he most certainly does. Two other additions in the preseason were off the pitch, but they were key ones, because Nikos Overhuel, who we had on the last show, if you haven't listened to that interview, have a chat with that. He came in as Director of Recruitment on February 12th, so he's going to have a big part in shaping the Whitecaps for a few years to come. And Ricardo Clark became the assistant manager to Marc Dos Santos on March 11th, coming in with a firm focus on the young guys in the team. And we spoke about this at the time, Steve, the experience that he brings with him as to what it takes to be successful in this league. I mean, the young guys should be hanging on his every word and really listening to what he has to extol to them.
Yeah, and definitely, and he's come out of that. I think he came from Houston. Yeah, and they've had a decent. It's not as good as FC Dallas, but they are able to develop their own players too. But it's. I thought he was more brought in for the MLS experience, like being an everyday coach and everything. And there are some. Sartini wasn't with the club at the beginning of the year, so they needed another assistant. And a lot of people had him pegged to possibly be the coach if Dos Santos didn't make it the full year, which still could happen down the road. Like he could still be being groomed to be another head coach for the Whitecaps, but for now, I think his value as an assistant is pretty good.
I mean, who knows? They are looking for an under-23 head coach. They might think, well, you've worked with a lot of these young guys. This is a chance for you to cut your teeth as a head coach, because he was working with the Dynamo Academy as well. So we'll wait for that announcement. Pre-season obviously was curtailed because of all this stuff with COVID. The Whitecaps did get 3 games in. They beat Real Monarchs in Chicago, and then a young team lost to Indy 11 the same day as they beat the Fire. But in March, it was announced that Sandy, Utah was going to be the Whitecaps' temporary home away from home. And that is going to be what we chat about in the next part of our Whitecaps end of season review. And we'll be back chatting about all of that after this.
Hi, I'm Vanni Sartini, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
This is a song, I don't even know what I'm saying. Everything is going wrong, I think I changed my mind again. I'm not sure if this is the kind of life that I saw myself living. I don't need no dating app to tell me if I look like crap, to tell me if I'm thin or fat, to tell me should I shave my rat. I don't need no radio, no MTV, no BBC. I just need a bubble back to set me on a higher path.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's our Artist of the Month here at AFTN for December. I kind of feel folk are going to think we just jumped on the bandwagon with this band Wet Leg, because they are being touted everywhere as one of the bands to watch next year. But we did play them a couple of months ago, so remember where you may have heard of them first. That was their single Too Late Now that was released this month. It's taken from their debut album that is coming out in April. And English band from the Isle of Wight, check them out. We've got one more song to come from them later this month. Another cracker there from them. Now, we're going to continue our Whitecaps year in review in this part, and we're going to be looking at the Utah months. I was trying to think of something snappier for that, but I couldn't really come up with anything. So the Whitecaps kicked off the MLS season down in Utah, playing out of RSL's ground in Sandy and making it a home away from home, renting condos and moving families down this time and everything down. I've got to say, you've got to really commend and tip your hat to the Whitecaps organisation here. The work that was involved in moving everyone down there, it was just incredible. And from speaking to people before they went and just after, the hours that everyone at the club put in to make this happen and to make sure that families were together, that animals could go down, that people could take their pets, that there was childcare, that there was schooling. It was just absolutely incredible, and I think they did a phenomenal job. And although there's no place like home, it was as good, I think, as they could have got, guys.
Well, for me, there might be other places that I would choose over Utah. But other than that, I just wonder if there were other options. But I guess they need the stadium, they needed the training facility, and that was the biggest two things.
That and getting the accommodation. It was easier to get accommodation than, say, in Portland. Yeah,
exactly. Portland would be not only costly, but it's hard to get anything in that area.
I know you would clearly pick San Diego if you were.
I would have. And I think it would have been a really good place to fire. But I don't know if the stadium would have fit in there. And plus, it is another place that doesn't have great, not facilities but more like places to stay. Everything's always spread out. Utah is a little bit more compact, so maybe that was a better choice that way. But yeah, great work for them. They tried to make their best to make it like home, but I think clearly by what we saw on the pitch, it wasn't close.
Yeah, I've heard stories of some of the camaraderie from their time in Utah, people taking care of each other, people, breaking bread together in their bubble and all that kind of stuff. And
the people of Utah as well made them very welcome, and fans were getting behind the team and stuff as well. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, obviously something they wouldn't want to do again. Like, I don't think if you ask Vanni Sartini, I don't think he'd want to start a season in Utah next year.
Well, funnily enough, I did ask him that. You'll find out in next week's interview. 3 of the first 4 games to kick the season off were in Utah, and the Whitecaps had 2 wins against Portland and Montreal, a 1-0 loss to Colorado. In between all that, there was a 2-2 draw against Toronto in Orlando. So, first 4 games, not a bad start to the season. 7 points from a potential 12. And then it just all went to shit. I don't know whether other teams just got it together or whether being away started to play, or I mean, I don't even know really what was behind it. And I know it's something that Marc struggled to put his finger on as to what was happening here. They had 5 straight losses after those first 4 games. And then you thought, maybe the tide turned. They got a 2-2 draw in Seattle, another 2-2 draw in Dallas. 2 very hard places to go and get points that the Whitecaps have shown over the years. Then they came crashing back down to earth with a 4-0 loss at home, I'm doing my quotation marks, to RSL on July 7th. Steve, where do you think it went wrong in that time?
I think they had, if I'm not mistaken, there were quite a bit of injuries, and it was all to one position, if I'm not mistaken. Was it the fullback position or something like that? They were just like running out of fullbacks left, right, and center. Gaspar would never played. Gutierrez got hurt.
Ali Adnan was stuck in Vancouver.
Yeah, exactly. So there was always that. And then there were other like spots too where like Godoy never got on the pitch fully. Like he was on and off, and he was supposed to be their stalwart at the back end. They were forced to play with Andy Rose a lot in the center back position, probably more than he expected to play last year. But yeah, there were
kept clean sheets with him on the pitch. But
yeah, but there and then again, I talked about it before. The number 10 wasn't there. And because of that, they couldn't get anything going forward. There wasn't that link up in the midfield that they needed. Even players they brought in were struggling because they just didn't have that one player. That number 10 makes a big difference, and we saw that when he came in.
The number 10 has been elusive for Vancouver for so long, and it's a real shame for the team, for the coaches that they didn't get him earlier in 2021, because I think they could have and they should have, but they didn't. But
I don't think they would have got Ryan earlier because he wanted to see the season out in Portugal.
Okay.
But even if they didn't get Ryan, they didn't even try to get like a secondary number 10, somebody that could play wasn't
that was Vitae supposed to be?
Well, yeah, but he was coming.
But he didn't even come for the whole year.
No, we didn't get him at all.
No, but what I'm saying is that they didn't even attempt to get like a USL number 10 or something like that, or another MLS number 10, somebody that can play that role. Because even if you don't have like the Ryan Gauld, you still can have somebody that can play that role and knows what to do in that position. And they didn't have anybody like that.
I'd like us to just go and like outbid RSL for Rusnak and get him now, and then we've got Rusnak, Gauld, and Vitae. We'll have 3 number 10s. It's like just overload the number 10s now. I half jest. I would love obviously to have Rusnak here, but that would be a weird formation.
So would Steve's niece. Was it your niece, Steve?
It was my niece that has that first name Rusana and then the middle initial K.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It was a good jersey for her.
Yeah.
After that heavy defeat to RSL, there was 10 days until the next game. And we spoke about this at the time. If the Whitecaps had got rid of Marc Dos Santos then, Zach, I would not have been surprised. It would have been tough because obviously they weren't in Vancouver. I felt that might have been a time to make a change to try and save the season at that point. And then when they didn't, I thought, oh, well, Marc's here to the end of the season. But it would have made a lot of sense then.
Yeah, it would have felt a lot more just than when they did it. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately when they did it, it was simply, I think, out of ego for some people at the club.
It would have been so cruel, too, because it would have been like one of those situations where the team went on a road trip and they asked the coach not to come back to the city that like the return. They basically didn't buy him a ticket home.
I think they would have. I think they would have maybe liked to have made the call, but they probably thought the public perception of getting rid of your coach when he's down away from the country, although didn't stop Toronto.
And it
would have been bad PR.
Yeah, and if they got rid of him in Utah, then Sartini wasn't even available at that point, so they would have had to bring somebody else in. We wouldn't have had Sartini in at all. Like, because he was here in Vancouver at that time.
Yeah, I don't think Sartini would have been the interim at that time.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting one to see what direction they would have gone. But nothing happened, and they were back for a few more games in Utah with the return to Vancouver looming in August. And then, seemingly from nowhere, the Whitecaps went on a run. They went unbeaten in 7. From July 17th to August 18th. Now, just 2 wins in that, 5 draws, but still a good unbeaten run. But it did feel that points were being left on the table. And they were bottom of the West at the start of August, and you're thinking, there's a number of games here that could have been 3 instead of 1. I mean, Steve, it was hard to imagine the turnaround that was coming at that point. You thought they maybe get a little bit of a run, get off rock bottom, but it was, unless we spoke on the show, unless they won out at BC Place and then did amazingly on the road, it was a tough ask.
I always thought they were going to be around that 8th, 9th spot, so they weren't going to be too far off. But yeah, the idea that they would have finished 6th, I didn't see it at that point. I thought if they have maybe they air quotes back in to the playoffs or something like that because somebody else did poorly, and that's kind of what happened in a way, but they did also have their own run as well.
Zach, how did Do you feel during that run, it did feel like they'd left points on the table, and that was ultimately going to cost them?
Oh yeah, for sure. There was so many draws and so many times where you thought they were going to get 3 and they only got 1. That it just felt like there was positives, but also just like, okay, yeah, it felt like there was this like, oh, stuff, there's improvement, but this is not going to be enough to get them into the playoffs.
Now, June and July saw what proved to be 2 key additions in that time. And it was 2 additions that turned the Whitecaps season around, really. One we expected or hoped was going to be the case, which was clearly number 10 Ryan Gauld. The other one, we hoped he would be able to find some goals for us, and that's Brian White. But we didn't really know what we were getting. We knew that he had the ability to score, that he'd scored goals all over at different levels. I said I thought he had some potential, but unless he was getting service, it was where those goals were going to come from, and he maybe wasn't the guy that was going to suddenly light it up based on what he had done before. So Brian White was traded to the Whitecaps on June 2nd from New York Red Bulls for $400,000 in GAM and a further $100,000 conditional GAM, which I think you have to imagine has been met.
Yeah, it's been met.
This is where, when we were talking earlier about Blackman, where it's like, okay, what is the real GAM value and stuff? Because it feels like White was a bargain, it feels like.
But the thing,
Blackman, it feels like might be fair value.
But at the time, what everybody was harshing on how much they spent on White.
Yeah, so many folk thought they'd overpaid for him.
Yeah, they overpaid for him. There were a lot of talk.
I probably did at the time too.
And the thing is you also have to, for GAM, it's so fluid, because if the Red Bulls were desperate for something because they had to make an bring in a player or something like that, they might be willing to take anything. And if some other teams didn't have anything, or maybe didn't have the value for White, it can fluctuate. GAM is it can fluctuate, just like international player spots. That can be different from time to time too. It moves up and down. So, I think the fact that probably they were desperate for money, and that's why they had one player available, and the Whitecaps needed that player. That's probably why they were able to get that for so little.
I mean, if you look at the Whitecaps, I've harped on about this so much. I know listeners are going to be like, oh, here he goes again. For years, the Whitecaps have never been able to get MLS deals done. Now you look, and White, Florian Ljungwirth, Tristan Blackman, and it's like, hey, all of a sudden, the Whitecaps are starting to do good scouting, good trades within the league, which in part you can say it's amazing what actually having a scouting department can do and people that's in charge of these things. But again, they deserve credit for being able to, and we're basing this on Blackman being a good addition, but even looking at the draft picks, to have singled out like Egbo and Brown, clearly they saw something in that. So people are doing their homework, and it's nice that we're not just taking punts on diamonds in the rough like during Robbo's era, or players that are signed to a particular agency and stuff like that. So I think they've done well in that regard.
Yeah, go Ulysses.
Yeah. He would be in one of our Flash 5 lists for something or the other. But White came to Vancouver, having made 50 appearances for Red Bulls over 4 seasons. 32 of those were starts. 16 goals and 4 assists in that time is none too shabby. Now, he did start slowly with the Whitecaps before exploding. Yeah, he scored in his debut against RSL in a 3-1 loss. But then he had no goals in his next 10 games. But then, bam, hit that rich vein of scoring form, gets 5 and 8 at one point, and he finished the season with 12 goals and 5 assists from 27 MLS appearances. Now, that's just a phenomenal return, Steve. And we won't go into it too much because we've talked about it a lot. But can he keep up that kind of scoring?
You
don't know.
He can't keep up that pace, but he can potentially duplicate the amount of goals he scored for a full season as 12.
Yeah,
and that's a very decent return from a striker.
Yeah, you certainly would take that.
Especially,
I would bite your hand off for that right now.
Especially who I would consider should be maybe this, honestly, the second and even potentially the third striker on the team. Like, he could be, if Caicedo comes in and plays like fantastic in the preseason, Caicedo could be the second striker with a new one in the lineup, and White is coming off the bench and rotating around.
It does sound that we're not getting a DP striker. So if White and well, obviously we have a DP striker in Cavallini. I keep forgetting about that. Whether he's here or not is the whole other question. If White and Caicedo light it up pre-season, start of the season, I would be delighted with that. That would be an exciting pairing with Gauld feeding them, and then a couple of wing backs or whoever you get going in there as well. That would be good. We learned this year that Brian White can score goals. But what we haven't learned yet is, does Brian White fancy a chocolate digestive?
Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive, even though it sounds suggestive? Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive?
If you're sitting at home and you decide to have a hot beverage, would you go for a tea, a coffee, or something else?
Sitting at home, recently I've been getting big into hot chocolate, so I might go with a hot chocolate.
Oh, and do you have a sweet tooth? Do you like a biscuit or a cookie or something?
Yeah,
like
I do have a bit of a sweet tooth.
What would be your biscuit or sweet treat of choice to have with your hot chocolate?
Probably chocolate chip cookies.
Ah, that's interesting, because I think Jake said that as well. Must be a Jersey thing.
I do.
Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive? Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive? Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive, even though it sounds suggestive? Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive?
Brian White there. Chocolate digestive section. I've got a lot of these in the bank that I haven't used, so I thought over the next coming weeks and stuff, we'll stick a few of these in this show, because you know how much I love this segment. So Brian White was one of the big additions in the summer months of June. In July, though, came the other big addition, Ryan Gauld. We finally got our 10, and a great addition, Steve. What we'd finally been calling out for. We wondered, would he take a little bit of time to find his feet, but he found it right away, and great contribution by the end of it all.
Yeah, he started off really well. It kind of slid a little bit down. It was almost like similar to the Pedro Morales, where he started off strong, and because he had played a full season beforehand, and then kind of moved right into a second half of another season. He kind of probably wore down. But I think after having full off season and then training with the Whitecaps next year, I think I definitely don't think, I know he's not a young player, but I don't think he'll have a sophomore slump at all. I think he'll jump into it and find the run. He's got the chemistry with Brian Wright already, and he has good connections with I know on the pitch and off the pitch, Leo Wusu. I think he's big fans with him or friends with him. So I think on and off the pitch, that'll be a good connection. It's just a matter of bringing everything together in training camp, and hopefully they don't have injuries with some of the key players and they can all connect right off the bat.
19 appearances for Gauld over the MLS season, including that playoff game in KC. 14 of them starts, 4 goals, 6 assists. I think it is fair to say that he was coming off a long season, so there's maybe a little bit of tiredness crept in there as well. Also, I think some teams maybe worked him out a little bit, because if you look at his output in the last 7 games, just 1 goal and 2 assists. So there's maybe a little bit that he was getting extra attention and getting closed down a little bit. So, I mean, there's that as well. But, I mean, overall, Zach, fantastic addition to the team, and I can't wait to see what he does in a full season with the club.
Yeah, and that goal is a pretty massive goal. I'm not too worried about him being figured out. He's the quality of player that Vancouver has not really seen in MLS. Like, yes, Pedro was a creative number 10, Davide was creative number 10, but they just played differently. And you can just see, like, he's a prime example of you get what you pay for, right? Like he's on a different level than all of his teammates. Like just the way he thinks, the way he moves, the way he runs.
His football IQ is clear to see, and it's lovely to have that in a Whitecaps shirt again.
And he's an exciting player. He does exciting things with the ball. He is the person who will sell tickets for them. He is a player that the marketing and the sales department have been longing for forever.
Well, he's got interest now. Folk in Scotland's watching him. So you've got, I've got friends saying, "Oh, how's Ryan doing?" Or, "Oh, I was watching this." Or, "If I come over, can you get me tickets to the game?" And it's like, yeah. Thinking they'll never be over. It's fine. I'll just say they can.
But no, he's a massive addition. Massive addition.
Sorry, one thing is the best part of the fact that he's on the Whitecaps is that we don't have to keep asking for a number 10 too.
Yes, we've finally got two. With VT as well. Looking forward to see what he can
and
bring.
his stats, the fact, taking into effect that he did play a season and a half going into this, his stats over a full season is not too bad. It's like, if he gets like 12 to 15 assists and about 10 goals, double-digit goals, that's not bad for number 10.
Take that.
And so it's going to be, that would be a huge positive if you get, multiple people with double-digit goals, and that's essentially what you're looking for in an attacking force.
But Ryan and his girlfriend have headed back to Scotland to see their families for the Christmas period. Just before he flew off, though, I got a chance to sit down with Ryan just to chat about his season and look forward to 2022. So go stick the kettle on, grab your biscuit of choice, sit back and enjoy our feature interview for this episode as I chat with Whitecaps designated player and number 10 superstar, Ryan Gauld. So Ryan, when you started off 2021 and you're in Portugal and you're like fighting a relegation battle there, was MLS even on your radar? Could you have imagined that you would finish the year over in Canada?
No, I mean, me and my girlfriend were actually discussing this not long ago. Like, we never would have thought in February, March, even like April, May, that, this is where we would end up. It wasn't, where we thought our next step was going to be. But, after talking more and more to the Whitecaps, everything fell into place and it felt like the right place to come. So, no, I don't think it was the expected choice or, the one that we thought where we were going to be. But, I'm delighted with how the year's played out. Looking forward to a new year and a full year with the team.
Yeah, I know it's always tough when you're joining mid-season, especially when you're just coming off a full season. But settling into Vancouver, how have you and your girlfriend found it? You've had all the weather conditions probably so far, apart from the snow, which we don't get a lot of. But like, are you missing the Portuguese weather at all?
I am, yeah. Missing just that nice bit of sunshine. We were in the Algarve, so it's pretty much sunshine all year round. So missing that, but no, apart from that, it's been really easy to settle into Vancouver. It's a lovely city, and like you said, with the weather and stuff, it feels so much like home to the both of us. So we've both really enjoyed our time here, and it didn't take too long for us to feel good and feel settled.
So what have you found worse, driving in Vancouver in rush hour or driving in that horrible one-way system that Dundee has?
Well, to be fair, we're in Kitsilano, so we never really seem to hit really bad traffic.
Oh yeah, you'll be fine.
But yeah, that Dundee, it wasn't the greatest traffic system, but
no,
they've updated the roads and everything back there, so even they've improved. But yeah, like I said, we've both enjoyed the time here, so we're looking forward to it continuing.
That's good. More importantly, how have the dogs settled in? Are they liking it over here?
Yeah, they settled in even quicker than us. The jet lag never seemed to affect them when it hit both of us. One of the dogs, they're both Portuguese, but one of them is not a fan of the rain. The other one loves it. So, no, but they've both been really happy, which makes us feel even more settled.
Yeah. I've got a rescue dog from Mexico, so it took her a little bit of getting used to like rain and snow and ice and stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, football-wise, how have you found MLS in these 5-6 months that you've been here? Was it what you were expecting? Was there big differences to what you found in the Portuguese league?
I think the thing that surprised me would probably be there's a lot of transitions in the game. It's a lot more open than a game would be in Portugal. When a team's happy to sit behind the ball and just wait and counter-attack. You can see there's a lot more balance throughout all the teams. Every team's got really good players, so it makes all the games even. And I've not played in a league like that before, where bottom can go away to one of the top teams and get a result, and it's not a huge surprise. So that probably surprised me, and it's even more intense than I was thinking it was going to be. So. I've only got good things to say about the league after my first few months here, and like I said, that's only after a few months. I'm sure after a full year, I'll have even more to say.
What's been the biggest challenges that you've found? Because I know a lot of players come over from the UK and the travel gets them a little bit, or playing in all the different conditions and field conditions. What have you found to be the toughest thing to adjust to playing wise?
The toughest so far has probably been, I mean, I don't mind the travel. On the plane, the longest we've had to travel. I know it'll be different next year because we play some of the Eastern teams, but the longest we've had to travel is like 4 hours. So it's not been anything like too bad. But the most difficult thing is maybe like when we went away to Colorado, the altitude there, the humidity when we went to Austin and Houston was ridiculous. I felt that was really hard to play in. So, but it's just it's good to go, and it's something that also helped with making the decision to come here, getting to go and see all these different cities, all the different stadiums. So, I'm trying not to complain about it too much and just look forward to the different challenges that lie ahead.
Is there any particular stadium that you went to that you were just kind of like, wow, this is just incredible?
The two that probably stand out to me are Austin and LAFC. I think they had when you're playing in it, they have a really European feel, with the stands right on top of the pitch. Great fan groups behind the goal. They've probably been the two away grounds that have stuck out to me more.
Yeah, that's two I've not been to yet. I really want to. Austin, when they lower the lights and the green stuff comes on.
It's cool. It's
amazing.
A cool stadium, yeah.
So for your own season then on the pitch, I mean, you seem to settle in really well. Where did all these headers come from? Because you weren't known for your headers and heading ability over the years.
No, that's a good question. I think before coming here, I'd only scored one header, I think, and that was a couple of years ago. So, I don't know what's brought all these on in the last couple of months, but I suppose I can give the credit to whoever's crossing, because to find my head is a challenge in amongst all the big 6-footers. So it must be down to decent crossing that I'm getting the chances. But no, as long as it doesn't matter, I suppose, if it's my head, if it's my left foot, or even my right foot would probably be stranger than my head. As long as they're going in helping the team, that's the main idea.
Oh, aye, that's all that really matters. I mean, the team this year, tough for you to integrate mid-season anyway, and then you're having a team that's coming back to Canada for the first time. You're starting August, bottom of the West. Could you have imagined at that point that you would have made the run that you did and got to the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't think it was a huge surprise because, when I was watching the team, when I first started speaking to Axel and to Marc, I started looking out at the team, watching them, and although the results weren't necessarily favourable, I don't think they were ever more than like 6 or 7 points from a playoff spot. So, like, I knew coming here that a good run of results and the fact that any team, like anyone can beat anyone in the league, it felt like it wasn't going to be too far away. It was just stringing together that good few results. And I think it's an even bigger achievement that we managed to get there, considering the fact that all the teams around us that were fighting for the same playoff spots, they were winning like every week in the last 5 or 6 weeks. Like just about every result every week was going against us, and the fact that we managed to like stick it out and get into that playoff spot, I think it's a huge credit to everybody at the club.
When you came in, obviously you'd spoken to Marc. Marc was the guy that brought you in, and Marc leaves, and you've been around football long enough to know these things happen so often. But did you start to think, oh man, what have I come to? Because it's like the coach is gone now, or did you have total faith in Vanni right away when he came in?
Well, yeah, it was a huge blow because Marc played such an important part in bringing me here, and I was really looking forward to working under him. But yeah, like you say, it's football, and to be honest, I didn't know Vanni before he came in. So, but yeah, I've loved playing under him every minute that he's been our manager. I think I can speak for everyone in the changing room when I say everyone's enjoyed it, everyone's had a brilliant time, and everyone's bought into what he's trying to bring to the club. So yeah, it was a bit of a surprise when it happened, but you have to put it in the past and focus on what you can do in the present. And yeah, since he's come in, I've had a great time. Really enjoyed playing for him.
You've obviously had a good impact on the team with goals and assists, but even when I spoke to Max the other day, he used the word arse. So you're obviously rubbing like some dialect onto these guys as well.
He likes to try and put on a wee Scottish accent. he's not the greatest I've heard, but he likes to give it a go.
I mean, there's been a few Scottish players come into the league in the last couple of seasons. Some have worked out, some haven't. Have you had guys getting in touch with you, asking what life's like over there and just what your thoughts on the league are?
Yeah, more just my my close pals that are still playing. Likes of John Suter at Hearts. We keep in touch quite a lot, and obviously when I first came over, he was asking how I found it and stuff. And but no, I don't hear from too many people. I'm quite a private guy anyway, so I only really speak to the folk that I know and the folk that I've grown up with and stuff. So yeah, there's not been too much contact, but if anyone did reach out, like I said earlier, there is only good things to say about the league, and like I'm sure the league's only going to get better with a few. I think there's a few expansion teams coming in soon, isn't there?
Yeah.
So
Charlotte next year, and then St. Louis coming after that. So
yeah, so I'm saying how good the league is just now, and I think it's only going to get better. So there's only good things to say about it.
Yeah, if you can get Suter over here, that would be fantastic. Although I think the BC Place pitch might not be great for his injuries. So
no, but if he was open to it, I'd be willing to do anything to get him over here.
Oh, aye. Last thing then, I mean, talking of Scotland, obviously Scotland on the brink of going to a World Cup. They've only been at one World Cup in your lifetime, and you were 2 at the time, so you don't remember that. I'm old. I grew up as a kid watching them in 78 and 82 and 86 and all these teams. Now, we spoke when you first came over about whether Steve Clarke had been in touch, etc., etc. I mean, what would it mean to you to go and play for Scotland at a World Cup finals if you got yourself back in the frame there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's just me. It's every Scottish player and every kid growing up in Scotland that likes football. That's, you ask them what they want to do in their career. That's probably the number one thing would be to play at a World Cup. So, like, I know I've not been involved lately in that, but I've just got to keep my head down, keep plugging away, and hopefully one day within the next year, I might get a call up. So I'm not gonna, expect too much because nothing's happened so far. But you just can't close the door. I'll always, be fighting for that and just, see where the hard work takes me.
Fingers crossed it does. I'd love to see you down in Qatar. Hopefully Scotland get there. Thank you so much for your time today, Ryan. Have a good birthday when it comes in a week or so.
Thanks very much.
Have a good Christmas. Enjoy Scotland, and we'll talk to you next season.
Right. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Thanks, Nate.
Very much.
Thanks to Ryan for taking the time out to have a chat with me before he jetted off for his return to see his folks for Christmas. And Ryan coming in as a designated player was on the back of another designated player moving on. And this is the last bit we'll talk about in this part. Ali Adnan had to head off because he couldn't get that visa sorted out. Just disappointing situation all round, Steve. I'm a big fan of Ali and what he brought to this team, and we missed those assists. He's a guy that led the team in assists for the last 2 seasons, and missing him going up that left wing was so evident early in the season. I wish nothing but the best for him. It was just an unfortunate situation.
Yeah,
at the same time, farcical though.
Yeah, I was so upset I canceled my visa and got a MasterCard instead. That's how upset I was about it. No, but he definitely... talking. I think there was some kind of fitness questions or something spread around, and then he posted videos about how fit he was.
Yeah, he looked very fit. But there is a difference between looking fit and being match fit.
And match fit, yeah. But overall, he would have been it could have been better for the Whitecaps. The fact, like, if he had been in Utah, it could have been a huge difference. Of course, we might not have seen Christian Gutierrez get as much time on the pitch and seen how good he was.
But he was injured for most of the beginning of the season.
I know, but at the beginning he played, right? And that's where we saw how good he was. And then I think they saw how good he was, and maybe said, maybe we don't need to bring Ali Adnan back in or something like that. So it again, unfortunate, but overall, I think it's probably not a huge loss at this point, and they were able to redistribute those funds to better positions.
Yeah, that's the key thing. I think the quality of players Ali Adnan, especially going forward, is in the dynamics of the MLS salary budget. It felt like a misallocation of funds.
I still have a little bit of concerns as to what it's going to be like on the left side of the park. I think we'll probably see Christian Dahomey play more as kind of a left wing back role as the season gets underway next year. But that was it for the Utah months. The Whitecaps were heading home. It was the season running. We're going to chat about that, quick chat about next year as we round up our Whitecaps end of season review, and we'll be back with all of that after this.
Hi, I'm Brian White, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
My name is Romanov, I'm a hard bass imperator. You are not my enemy if you are not from Natal. We start the second battle, my dick is getting harder. You can call me Iron Man, Russian Terminator. Please don't kill me. Give me reason. Oh my God, oh my Jesus. No, he is not available, use MasterCard or Visa. I'm a paranoid, I'm a self-destroyed. Hey, you are pussy boy. I'm a Putin boy in the middle of nuggets. It was so many street fightings, it was so many good parties. You know the Russians like Vikings. So many parties where I'm shooting from a gun. Night, party, partisan. Hard bass, military dance. Bitches likes my Makarov guns. You can join me in Kamasage on your OnlyFans. Russian football hooligans. In the middle of nuggets. It was so many street fightings. It was so many good parties. You know the Russians like Vikings. So many parties where I'm shooting from a gun. Night, party, partisan.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part is former Artist of the Month, From Russia with Love. It's DLB, and that's a single they released, I think in November, called Partisan. I was initially going to keep it for Football Violence Awareness Month, solely because it's got the line Russian football hooligan in it, but this song's not about football, so I thought I'm not going to keep it for Wavelength, although the video is a lot of fun. There's a lot of different football strips and tracksuits getting worn in that. And sad news, Steve, I know you'll be devastated. I didn't mention this in the show before, but a couple of months ago, the lovely Loli was kicked out of the band. She's no longer in DLB. They're just two-piece with her brother and her ex-boyfriend, I think he is as well.
That's an odd to pick who stayed in the band and who didn't.
Yes. There was lots of murmurs and things going around as to why she was kicked out, and both sides have their versions of it that the other one disputes. But
she was lovely. I agree with you there.
She was. And she's starting solo stuff now, so I mean, that's good. So you can still follow prosto.loli on Instagram, but that was DLB with their song Partisan. So for this final part of the show, we're going to be rounding up our Whitecaps year in review as they returned home and made that big run into the playoffs. So August 21st, LAFC come to BC Place. First time in a year that BC Place had hosted matches. First time in 18 months that they'd hosted matches in front of fans. And they came away with a 2-1 win. It was good to be home, and you wondered what was to come. And it was 4 league matches in a row at BC Place, and it was upbeat. Folk were excited about what was going to happen, and we're back home. Can they go on a run? And then all of a sudden, the Whitecaps go away to Vancouver Island to play Pacific FC in the Canadian Championship on August 26th, and they fall to a 4-3 defeat. Now, Zach, you and me were at that game. Mixed emotions for me, because I love the cup underdog to win. But I knew the pressure that was going to kind of put on the Whitecaps if they didn't. But I did feel joy at the time that Pacific had won, and then I felt really bad the next day as things played out. But just looking at that game, Zach, the atmosphere at Starlight, absolutely electric. The performance by Pacific, fantastic. They could easily have got more than 4 goals. You've got to give credit to the Whitecaps for fighting back the way they did, but ultimately Pacific fully deserved that win, and the Whitecaps were simply outplayed in the night.
Yeah, Pacific was the better football club. I think by a respectable margin on the evening, and it was a night to remember for sure. I feel bad, obviously, that Marc lost his job in the middle of the year, but I think we sort of talked about this before. I really don't think he was coming back next year either way.
No, I don't.
I don't think they were going to bring him back, and I don't think he would have come back if they offered him the opportunity to come back. Yeah, it was premature, but I think it has allowed him to move on to the next chapter, maybe not quicker than he would have, but with a little bit more breathing room than in a positive way for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
the atmosphere at Starlight
was great.
Phenomenal.
It was great. I mean, when you have 5,000 people in that ground or more, because I think it can fit 6, but there was a cap at 5. When you have it like that, it's a really great place to be. When there's 2,500 or 3,000, it can still be a good place to be, but it's not nearly as fun when it's full. And there was some traveling support, which was nice for the overall ambiance.
Yeah,
of the game.
I mean that is what's going to grow the game in Canada if away fans can get 2 matches in numbers, and you've got these local rivalries. And yeah, I'll
never forget it.
Yeah. And the Whitecaps lost to the eventual CPL champions as well.
Yeah,
so
you can look at that as well.
And that looks good for Marc Dos Santos' resume too. He goes, I lost the cup game, but it was to
they were champs.
They were champions, yeah.
Semi-finalists in the cup and eventual league champions as well. But I was happy for Pa. I was happy for all the guys that we knew.
Yeah.
we spoke about this. My big regret from that evening was we saw
yes.
Marc leaving the ground, and Zach's like, "Oh, should we go and speak to him?" I was like, "No, we'll speak to him later."
You're like, let's give him space. This has been a hard night.
Yeah,
you knew he wasn't going to be super happy.
Yes, he would have taken time to speak to us. He was chatting to us the day before. But I mean, we were obviously talking to and socially distanced, celebrating with Marco Bustos and Callum Irvin. Hugging socially distant, isn't it? We're all part of the Whitecaps family.
They hugged us, to be fair.
Yes, yeah.
That was not that.
In case Trish is listening to this, they came to us.
We didn't issue. We said stay away from us.
What you meant to go? No means no, Marco. But. Yeah, we were just having fun chatting to those guys, and the guys from Can PFA were there as well. And I do wish we'd spoken to Marc, because the next day, my wife and me, we'd had a couple of days in Langford, and we're going up to see her dad in Nanaimo. And I love Sydney. It's the town, not LaRue. Although, it's a whole other thing. She did like my accent. I have mentioned that before, after she won that gold medal. Or the World Cup, I should say. It's not a gold medal. It's a gold trophy. I'm just going on now. It's Sydney LaRue. She's got me all discombobulated. But anyway, we're going up to Sydney, the town. And the Whitecaps were meant to have media availability with Marc, I think 12:30 or 1 o'clock. So I said, we'll have a wander around town with our lovely Penny that I mentioned at the start of the show. And then I said, we'll sit down on this bench. And it was like 5 minutes before it was to start. Went into my phone, and then there's a message from Nathan saying, it's been pushed back until 3 o'clock. And I was like, okay then. I guess they're just delayed, having come back from the island, etc., etc. So we thought, we'll start to head up to Nanaimo, and I'll just get it on in the car. We'll pull over somewhere and do the call then. And then as I'm driving along, my phone is going crazy. And I'm like, what is happening? So I said to Caitlin, go and check what's going on here. And she's like, who's that sending you naked pictures? Like, no, don't check that message. And she's like, apparently Marc's been fired. I'm like, what? And I had to try and find somewhere to pull over to read it. And then I'm doing stuff. And I had an article that I'd prepared after the RSL game, thinking he was going to get fired then, that I had to just do a couple of quick amendments to that. I thought, I don't need this article anymore. And then folk are like, did you know this was coming? Because you got that up within 3 minutes of him being fired. I was like, no, just quick writer. But anyway, long story short, then they had the press conference, and I was stuck in a traffic jam going up to Nanaimo, and I couldn't go in the conference. It came as a shock to me. I didn't think they would fire him after that because of the run they were on. Obviously, in hindsight, it sparked the team. Vanni came in. Whether Marc would have done that, I don't know. Do you think he would, Zach? I genuinely don't think he would have got the same reaction from the players.
I don't think it would have happened in the same way, but I think they were on the trajectory already for it to go that way. So would it have happened in the exact same way? Probably not, but I think it could have happened. But ultimately, the owners, I think their ego was really bruised from losing to another Canadian Premier League side in the Cup. And
they certainly weren't happy at the stadium, as lots of people told us afterwards, and a couple of folks sent us pictures.
We saw a couple of them.
Yeah,
or we saw one of them.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, did it catch you by surprise? And do you think the Whitecaps would have been a playoff team if Marc had stayed?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I agree with Zach, the trajectory, because they weren't winning games, but they were on an unbeaten streak at that point in MLS. So
could he have turned those draws though into wins? That's the big question. That's
the big question. And tactically, did Sartini do something different with that? That different formation, and that might have gained him a couple extra goals here and there, because you have two up top instead of one, a striker wise. But overall, I don't know if it would have made what difference it would have made. I do think they would have had a good end to the season, but I think that they might have been more hovered around the 8 or 9 spot instead of the 7-6 spot. So that probably did make a difference. Like I said, when you get a new coach in, you're going to get a huge bump. from that coach, especially with a coach with a personality like Vanni Sartini. It's a new voice and everything like that. So that's a bump of maybe like 5-6 points on its own. Forget everything else. So that might have been the difference right there. We're seeing it with another team in Vancouver, a coach who likes to swear and with ice hockey, like a hockey, they're on like a 6-7 game winning streak right now too.
I had a couple of people, I think 4, maybe 5, sent me messages going, "Oh, you'll love the Canucks coach. He swears a lot." Yeah,
I know. No, he drops F-bombs. He's known to eat ice cream in front of people. Like he's a guy that's a player's coach, and that's what Vanni Sartini is as well.
Yeah.
So
he uses the term franchise a lot.
No, he's a coach. He wouldn't bring that up, I don't think. But yeah. So I think that bump really did play a part. My question is did that burger that Axel had at nighttime, did that have anything to do with the
non-sponsored burger?
Yeah, like was how bad that burger was? Did that turn him into the Marc Dos Santos firing happening?
That was just. I think that was just a story. I really think it came down to the owners.
Yeah, I don't know. There was certainly a dash for the door after he had that burger anyway. But yeah, Vanni came in, won his first 2 games in charge before a 1-0 loss to Portland, but the Whitecaps finished the season, and this is under Marc and under Vanni, with just 2 defeats in their last 22 league games. Both those defeats coming to Cascadian rivals. Home loss to Portland, away loss in Seattle. But 2 defeats in 22. Amazing turnaround, amazing running. And I think for me, there was 3 big moments in the end of the season. There was Max's penalty save against Dallas that we spoke about when we did our awards. That if he hadn't saved that, the Whitecaps were not a playoff team. But that just got everything going up full steam. The win over Minnesota on October 27th, that was a key one. And I think that gave everyone at the club the belief, we're going to do this. We're going to make the playoffs. They go to LAFC and get a draw the next week. And then the way that they finished the season with that draw against Seattle and how they battled. And I still picture that last gasp stop that Max Crepeau did, pouncing on the ball. And how different that would have been if Freddie had just stuck his foot out and poked that home. We'd have been talking about a non-playoff team. We might not have been talking about Vanni being the head coach. Fine lines, my dear friends.
Yeah, and imagine if Seattle had maybe taken a chance on 1 or 2 of their sort of fit players for that game as well, in addition to that chance from the Colombian at the end. Yeah, I still am I'm still shocked that a little bit shocked that they got a draw in that game to qualify, and that they didn't. I thought they were going to lose and they were still going to get because of the other results. But in the end, it was those other results would have sunk them had they not gotten the draw, which was to me was
crazy from a Seattle point of view as well. If they'd got the win,
yes, exactly,
number 1 seed, whole different route to the potential MLS Cup.
I don't know. The number 1 seeds didn't do fair too well.
Oh yeah, that is true, right enough. I actually, just quickly talking about Seattle, the draw was obviously made this week for the CONCACAF Champions League. Seattle look to have an easy route to the final. It's a worrying sign. Could they be the first MLS club to do it?
Yeah, but Forge definitely don't have a good matchup.
They've got a tough one. They're in tough from the start. But I mean, Cruz Azul coming to Hamilton to play Forge. That's what this competition's all about. And yeah, we'll talk about that in another show. But that was the season running. It was exciting. The way it ended in the playoffs, that KC game, we'll hear from Vanni next week talking about that. But there's a tinge of regret about the way that they approached that game. I think a bit of surprise as well at how KC came out for it as well. And as the weeks go past and you see how the playoffs played out, it does feel a bit of a wasted opportunity for the Whitecaps. I just wonder if they'd got past KC, how far could they have gone? It's something we'll never know. Queen has balls thing, etc., etc. But it was an amazing end to the season, Zach. It was maybe a slight disappointing last game, but full credit for the team, the way that they battled. And it's just exciting as to what now lies in store for next year.
Yeah, there was that whole massive celebration to make the playoffs. And yeah, the playoffs themselves were quite a letdown. So hopefully as they strive to take that next step, as Axel would say, that the playoffs are clinched much earlier, and that the anticipation is for actually, making it to like a Western Conference final or MLS Cup.
Steve, just your thoughts on that, the whole run-in, the excitement, just the way that they played. And
yeah, the season was very similar to a typical Whitecaps game. Didn't start off well. Not very many, opportunities to get results in the first bit, and then they ended strong, but just like, obviously the playoffs are a different thing, but they ended strong, and that was the most important part. And that kind of brings a little bit more hope into next year. It's just hope they're able to bring in the players they need to. They've obviously started with a good start, with Tristan Blackman, but don't stop there. Bring in other players if they need to. Don't be afraid to move players on if they need to do that, and just have the good mix going into the year, so you're not wondering who's like what they're lacking. Like, have a strong team to start off with.
Yeah, and this new league that's coming in is going to be a great opportunity for these young guys to show, are they MLS ready? Well, something else we talk about Vanni about, so we'll have that in next week's show. Really building up next week's show, but it's our Christmas special. You don't want to miss that. There'll be Vanni. There'll be like Christmas related sections. There'll be fun and games. There'll be music. I'm excited for next year. I think it's going to be good. We've still got the COVID thing hanging over us, and you've seen what's happened in NHL with a number of players coming down with COVID. You've seen what's happened in the English Premiership as well. I believe restrictions are coming on January 15th that mean that professional sports people aren't exempt anymore. You've got to be vaccinated or you won't get in the country. How will that affect like travel things? You just don't know right now whether the Whitecaps could end up not playing all the games in Vancouver again, because you just don't know what's happening at any point with this pandemic. Let's hope not, though. Let's hope this was a year like no other, and we're not sitting here in 12 months' time doing a review going, well, yeah, they were back in Utah again for a spell or wherever. But I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for the memories this year, and roll on 2022. But that's the end of our Whitecaps season review. The first of our 4 specials that we're going to be doing over the coming weeks. That's not it for the show, though, because we're going to finish, as usual, with this episode's wavelength. And we're going back to Scotland, friend of the show, out of Edinburgh, Word SOS. And Word has a new 5-track EP that came out this month, and I'm playing a song from it in wavelength. It's got a lot of football stuff in it, which you'll hear. It's not solely a song about football, but there's enough football content in it for me to include it in wavelength. This is the second track from his EP. This is I Watch Adverts on iPhones.
I don't ask for a lot, not know what I want. I've no iPhone watch, but I still make songs. Okay. I don't ask for a lot, nor know what I want. I've no iPhone watch or a Porsche on the lawn. I've no even got a garden, is character wrong. I've no plans to sell out, I don't sell many songs. I don't ask for a lot, nor know what I want. I've no iPhone watch or a Porsche on the lawn. I've no even got a garden, is character wrong. I've no plans to sell out, I don't sell many songs. Yeah, some rappers would push their own granny off a bus for a Grammy, or some junkie for some Charlie. Addicted to the swally and celebrity parties, will never accept themselves and be happy. Need to advert your eyes from the adverts. The Photoshop lies, frozen marketing execs are targeting experts, attacking perspective, so you lose self-perspective. follow directives. Buy this, buy that, getting by on a fart. It smells funky, all the money is taxed. And going paperless cash will only tighten the gap. And take money through the street and a fat cat's lap. Hey, rap material objects. Subject to the serial barcodes on projects. I gave it free, never focused on pockets. They always stayed empty, at least I'm honest. I don't ask for a lot, nor know what I want. I've no iPhone watch or a Porsche on the lawn. I've no even got a garden, is character wrong? I've no plans to sell out, I don't sell many songs. I don't ask for a lot, nor know what I want. I've no iPhone watch or a Porsche on the lawn. I've no even got a garden, is character wrong? I've no plans to sell out, I don't sell many songs. Money can't buy happiness, but bet it helps. I put money on a horse on the course and it fell. I put a line on the football, come on this helps. But the rest a pure hunt, so I lost it as well. I don't brag, well really I can't. Overdraft in the bank and my credit is tanked. Scottish Gas sending letters like pay on demand. Pass it on to debt collectors, are you kidding me, man? Get ignored like a TV license. People at the door, then I'll just stay quiet. I'll sit in silence, and if they try it, I'll just explain all my streams are pirate. I patch it, repeat like a captain's pirate. Patch it, captions to catch this tyrant. Lyrically advised to calm it, but that ship sailed. I ask for a lot, nor know what I want. I've no iPhone watch or a Porsche on the lawn. I've no even got a garden, is character wrong? I've no plans to sell out, I don't sell many songs. I don't ask for a lot, nor know what I want. I've no iPhone watch or a Porsche on the lawn. I've no even got a garden, is character wrong? I've no plans to sell out, I don't sell many songs. I could be a better version of me, says a man on TV. Is he selling me dreams? Now I don't really need it, but you gotta agree that's a pretty cool Hoover that comes with 4 speeds. Maybe I'll just stay not cook it myself. I'll make a guy on a bike come carry my mail. See a lot of adverts all start to appeal, like hot single girls in your neighbourhood for real. Damn pop-ups on his goal. Why is it this hard to watch free football? There's 5 Scottish games on this afternoon, but Sky Sports is only showing English League 2. Typical, I feel invisible. Maybe they could sell myself some appear in jail. Maybe feel better throwing pennies in a wishing well. OTV, please tell me how I really feel. I don't ask for a lot, nor know what I want. I've no iPhone watch or a Porsche on the lawn. I've no even got a garden, is character wrong? I've no plans to sell out, I don't sell many songs. I don't ask for a lot, nor know what I want. I've no iPhone watch or a Porsche on the lawn. I've no even got a garden, is character wrong? I've no plans to sell out, I don't sell many songs. Nah.
Word SOS there, taken from his new EP. That was I Watch Adverts on iPhones, and you can get that EP on word.bandcamp.com. Please go and support him. It's an absolutely fantastic EP, well worth your £4. Every track on it is tremendous, and we'll be playing more from that EP over the coming weeks. But that is it for this episode of the show. And just before we go though, let everyone know where they can find you online and anything that you learned this week or want to add, guys. Let's start off with Steve.
You can find me on Twitter at Whitecaps Beat. And for me, what I learned is that the Whitecaps are really going to have to set the mood when they visit Charlotte's new stadium.
Definitely.
You can find me on Twitter at Zachary AM. I'm a part of the FV Fanatics in the Valley, trying to bring a CPL club this way. And what did I learn? I learned this year that step by step, the Whitecaps are making progress.
That, I thought you were going to go into Martika's Toy Soldiers there. Step by step.
I was going to do step by step, oh baby, but I thought no.
Toy Soldiers by Martika is amazing. I have that on 7-inch.
Well, that's good. But Step by Step, obviously, Hanging Tough, same similar song.
Yeah.
So they moved from Hanging Tough to Step by Step.
I am Michael McCall. Find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Read all our stuff away from the numbers, aftn.ca. Give us a like on YouTube, turn on notifications, etc., etc. youtube.com/AFTN Canada. If you're not a subscriber to our extra podcasts, maybe think about that as a little Christmas gift to yourself. Go on. You deserve it. You're worth it. $30 a year. $3 a month. What more could you ask for? What I learned, not really what I learned this week, but it did make me appreciate it this week, because I said at the start of the show, we lost our wonderful little furry angel Penny this week, and getting Penny 2 years ago from a rescue, she was a senior dog, and it's only the second dog I've ever had, and my first one was one from somebody that I worked with. Her parents had a farm and they had a litter, so we got a dog from that. But It's my first rescue dog, and the joy that she gave us, and just giving her a new home and an extra life and just a roof over her head, and the love that rescue dogs can give you, it's well worth it. If you're thinking of a dog, please check out the local rescues. There's so many wonderful rescues in BC, especially in the Lower Mainland or in the island. Have a look, get a dog. Remember though, a dog is for life, not just for Christmas. And senior dogs, they're wonderful. You might not have them long. It is heartbreaking. I don't know how many more senior dogs I can go through. It's a tough thing to go through every couple of years, but they make it worthwhile, and you just give them a little special end to their life. So bear that in mind. But thank you for listening to this show. We will be back soon with our Christmas special. Until then, thanks for listening. Take care. Please stay safe out there. And mon the Caps.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
AFTN